Welcome to Courage, Dear Heart. This is Charlie Wall, and today I'm joined by the very lovely Lauren. Welcome, Lauren. So, Lauren's been working with me for some time, and we'll get into that. But, Lauren, before you sort of introduce yourself and all that jazz, I'd love for you to answer the question, what does courage mean for you?
Well, I don't, like most things, I don't think there's a really simple answer, and it's sort of a mixture of things. Courage definitely makes me think of strength, pushing yourself out of your boundaries, and also see it as like a journey, um,
Mm.
being able to ask for help. Yeah, finding your own strength in different situations, however that may look.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer because it leads us really nicely, doesn't it, into your story. So, do you want to start by telling the listeners a little bit about you?
Yeah, so I live in York. I'm in my mid-30s. I have known Charlie for quite a long time in various different ways. And what brought me back to Charlie in a more significant way was me and my partner had a baby, and our son was incredibly unwell from being very small. I'd had a very difficult pregnancy with a lot of anxiety and worry and health complications. And then he was born, and things just continued to be difficult and confusing. I I think he was just over a year when or maybe not. I can't even remember when I got back in touch with Charlie. But essentially, what had happened was we didn't have any answers about what was going on for my son. He couldn't feed, he wasn't developing. I was growing increasingly anxious and felt incredibly responsible for everything. And all of the anxiety that I'm told comes with being a new mum anyway felt amplified, and all of this old stuff was just being amplified by this current experience to the point that by the time I finally reached out to Charlie to work one to one, I was having suicidal thoughts most of the day. I was having panic attacks. I was anxious to the point, and I can remember this point was a really significant point where I was going in the shower and I just couldn't feel the temperature of the water. So I was completely like disassociated. I'd approached various professionals for help and been misunderstood for my own, this is for my own health, but we'd also approached various professionals for help with our son and hadn't really again been listened to. So as we worked together, there was a real theme of not being listened to. But that's how I found myself with Charlie. Would you like me to tell the end of the story now or where I am now? So that's sort of the
Um,
beginning.
Well, we can go there, we can go there,
Mm.
but I think just to for the listeners to get a real sense of how difficult life you found, how difficult it was back then. When you came to me, you said you'd been working with other people and you hadn't felt heard. So when you came to me, and obviously me and you had the advantage of knowing each other from my previous life, when we
Yeah.
both lived in Cambridge. But what did it take for you to reach out to me initially? Can you remember?
What was it? So I'd been through sort of NHS mental health assessment after assessment after assessment. Like, Jesus, and none of them face to face. I used to be a mental health professional. I was a nurse. How can you assess someone's mental health over a phone call and sending them out a questionnaire? It drove me mad. So I was angry. And I got this assessment that just said Lauren is an anxious first-time mother who needs help to leave the house. And I was just like, fuck you. Am I allowed to swear? Sorry, you can bleep that out.
Yeah, you no, no, you can you're allowed to swear.
And I was waking up every morning and I hated it. Like I hated my life. I felt like I'd made this terrible mistake. Like we'd had a baby and I'd ruined our lives. I remember thinking it ruined your life. And the suicidal ideation was getting unbearable. And although I didn't think I was going to kill myself, there was always that fear that I was getting so disassociated, I would do something frightening. And I was in
Mm.
your circle group and I was
Mm.
sort of dipping in and out of things in the circle group. I was coming to the group coaching and I just thought, I deserve help. Charlie, if she can offer me help, I want her help because what these women are saying is making sense to me. When I'm able to talk to Charlie in this group, it's making sense to me, and it's getting in when everything else was just like frozen. There was like a warmth in there, and then I reached out to you and said, "What can you do for me?" And I was in a very lucky position that I have family support to access that as well. And yeah, we set up a call to go through things and we took it from there. But the first step really was the group, the circle group.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'm glad you said that because I think that's really important. Often people come into the circle group, and what you said was really beautiful, that amongst the sort of frozen experience in your body, there was some warmth getting in, some resonance getting in. And I just think that's
Yeah.
really important that you were able to feel that in amongst the freeze.
Yeah, and the women in that group were warm and they were mothers and they were grandmothers and they were people with life experience and there was no judgment and there was just I don't know, there was connection and I felt so disconnected and I felt like everything we were going through was just isolating
Mhm.
us more and more and there was that link to other people who were being courageous and
Mhm.
moving
Yeah.
and moving forward at their own pace with no judgment and gentleness as opposed to I felt very much and I've said this about Casper's life as well. I felt very much like the healthcare service was treating us like cars in the garage and like here's your MOT, this is what's wrong with you, this is what you can have to fix you and that's that. And I just didn't feel like I was being treated as a person experiencing things. Yeah.
You did feel like that in the circle. You did feel like you were a person.
Yeah, I felt like I was person and I felt like I could see people as well who were yeah, being courageous and going through their own stuff in a really open and honest and helpful way and being brave and being real. And I was very isolated at the time. I was at home with a baby who couldn't feed, was fed with a tube, was vomiting all the time. We didn't go anywhere. Yeah, I wasn't seeing friends. Like my life had changed completely. I didn't recognize anything for quite a while that felt familiar. Yeah.
Mm. So your son's name is Casper. You mentioned Casper. So just for anyone listening thinking, who's Casper?
Yeah,
Casper is
what's
your
going on? Yeah, Casper is my little boy.
and how old is he now?
He is just over 2.5 now.
Okay. So we started working together and I think he was just under a year when we started.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me about your experience of working with me one to one.
So sometimes it's hard to put in words, but I'll try and explain. So in the very beginning, your approach was just like a lifeline. So by having our weekly calls where we could go into more in depth, that was like something that felt familiar. I should point out at this time I'd accessed a psychologist and like she was great and I bonded with her, but it wasn't enough. And I remember talking to her about that I was going to move to working with you and your approach. And she said, that sounds like what you need right now. So, yeah, your approach at that time was that we had the app. So, when I was in a moment, I could share that moment with you face to face on video, and then you would reply as soon as you could, which just felt like a real blessing and it felt like a real privilege to know that you were alongside me through things. It felt less lonely. It felt less like a crisis,
Mm.
um, because I knew that you were holding me and had me in mind. And like that helped me a lot to feel this connection to a person who was grounded and who believed in me and believed in my little boy Casper and believed that things were going to be okay. Like, don't get me wrong, there were days when you were like, it is okay. And I'd be like, Charlie thinks she doesn't know. But like that belief in me when I didn't have the capacity to believe in myself. And I didn't trust people who said they did apart from you. And I can't explain why that was, but there was something like I was able to put that, like, believe your energy and believe your calmness and believe your time. Whereas I think sometimes when we're in a crisis and we're in this overwhelm, the people we have close relationships with, they're so afraid, like, and they want to fix you and they want everything to be okay. And you're just like, but you don't, but you're not engaging with my pain. So that's what you did. You engaged with the pain and you let it matter and you let me experience it while also holding on to that belief. Yeah. And right at the beginning, it was a lot of it was like education about your nervous system and your thought. And that that was accessible for me.
Mhm.
Like I found with psychology and that sort of approach, it's like, right, let's go into the nitty-gritty of all your and it's like, no, 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 like I need coping mechanisms to get me through the next hour. Like, so it was almost, I think I always think about Casper, but like I think about Casper going to nursery and the different things they teach children about like life. And it was like very early stage stuff, and that is what I needed. So it was stuff about reconnecting with my body, working on the disassociation I was feeling, finding the language to
Mm.
explain things and make sense what was going on was very helpful when you're going through panic. Like it's scary, but when you start to understand it, you can, like, for me, I could run like a backing track of your voice. Oh, that's this autonomic nervous system firing up because it's a perceived threat. What is the threat? Is it really a threat? So I was able to start using your voice and your language to make sense to myself again. I should point out, like, I think I said before, I was a trained mental health nurse for a really long time. I've worked in the NHS all of my working life. I worked in dental phobia. I understand anxiety, but once you're in it, like really in it, yeah, it takes over and your understanding might be there, but your experience, for me, the experience didn't match.
Mhm.
So by having like you holding my hand in a figurative sense, it was like showing me the way, like, oh, you do know this, you remember, you need to practice it. And there was no pressure. Yeah. So that was sort of the beginning of our relationship. I felt like I was coming for like a weekly teaching. And actually, no, right at the beginning, I think you just let me cry a lot of the time and be sad. And we talked a lot about grief and before we moved on to the education.
Mm.
Yeah. There was a lot of just like a release of everything. It was my space where I could just like go blah, 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 instead of having to hold it together as much as possible all the time for this tiny little boy. It was like my space to like say all the things and feel all the feelings
Yeah.
alongside the education. Yeah.
Well, nervous system work is so important, and I can't start that straight away with someone when they're in that acute sort of crisis that you
Yeah.
were in, because you're already at capacity, right? You're already overwhelmed. There's already a lot of anxiety, panic,
Yeah.
what would we have said they were, like worst case scenario experiences? There was a lot of trauma.
Doom.
Well, there was a lot of trauma. You'd gone through a lot of trauma. So what we had to do was sort of get you to know and trust that you were held, to be able to feel heard, and
Yeah.
to get in touch with that wisdom, to be able to regulate with me before we could start that process of helping you to understand the nervous system. So I think you've articulated that really beautifully.
Mm. I think it's hard to explain because I've like I recognize that person that I was because it was me and I understand why I was there, but like I can't fully access it again,
Yeah.
which is good. Like I remember thinking like I've had therapy in my life at various points with working in mental health. You have therapy, and I remember having like psychoanalytic psychotherapy, and they want you to delve into the deepest, darkest minutiae of like things. And I was just like, that isn't helpful for me personally. So yeah, like I know Lauren then was Lauren then, and that was me, but like I don't have the same depth of connection to that. And my partner Jamie said the same thing recently. He said he was explaining our story to a colleague, and he said halfway through he just stopped and he was like, "Yeah, that was crazy. We did really well. No wonder we were struggling." And I think that was, yeah, I think at the time we were being told by professionals that everything was kind of okay. So then there was also this disconnect that I felt like, which is an ongoing theme for me, too much. My reactions were too much. My worry was too much. And actually, if you wrote it all down and explained it to a stranger, they'd be like, yeah, no wonder you felt the way you did. Like, no wonder you were incapacitated by anxiety. No wonder you were scared. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah, because you start to feel there's something wrong with you. And if that's always been sitting in the
Sad.
background anyway, something like that will raise,
Oh, yeah.
raise
I
that
thought I
will,
was terrible mother and there was something wrong with me and how was I getting it so wrong? And yeah.
and
But
actually
actually,
it turns out you were right the whole time.
yeah, I was. I was totally right the whole time. Yeah, yeah, I was. I'm still right
Mothers,
the whole time.
me too.
Not about everything, but quite about quite a lot of things.
Well,
Yeah.
particularly when it comes to Casper, and that was
Yeah.
one of the biggest things, wasn't it? That you had this real strong sense of intuitive knowing, and you were
Yes.
being told, no, 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 you're wrong, or whatever they were saying. They weren't
Yeah.
listening to you, were they?
No one was listening. And I think that's another thing. You listened to me. No one was listening. And I also started to feel like people close to me weren't listening. They were just already ready with their stock answer of everything will be okay in the end. Don't worry, he's doing great. And it's like, well, no, if you look around at other children his age, he's not doing great. He can't move his mouth properly. He can't feed. It's not that he won't feed, he can't feed. You just need to stop breastfeeding. No, he's going to end up with an oral aversion because he won't take a bottle. Like, it was an intuition, but it was also based in like experience of working with children with developmental genetic problems.
Mm.
But I felt like I'd lost my strength and my voice. And I started to feel like I was mad. That was one of my fears. Remember at the beginning that I was going to go mad. And it was a fear, but it was also a fantasy, all muddled into one. Because if I did go mad and got sectioned, then I'd have to go to hospital and I'd have to rest, and everything would get better. The same as the suicidal ideation, right? Now I now understand that was my brain's way of being like, but if you're dead, then you don't have to deal with this anymore.
Yeah.
There was
Yes.
very much around that, and it was they were almost like fears but fantasies all muddled into one, which was very like confusing. And
Compelling.
yeah, definitely. I was terrified that I was going mad, but also kind of wanted to be, because then this was all not real in a way. But I
Yeah.
wasn't. I wasn't going mad. I was actually completely right. And the system was wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you loved the basement and the lift analogy,
Yes.
didn't you?
Yes, I did. I used that a lot. Yeah. I spent a lot. What was I again in the basement? Was I a troll?
I don't know if you're a little doom fairy. I can't
Doom,
remember.
doom
Because
goblin.
I
I
used to
think
be a doom fairy.
I was a little. Was I a basement goblin, I think?
That's right. You were a basement goblin. Do you want to explain that metaphor to, well, your understanding of that metaphor and how it helped you?
Yeah. So, one of the really important things that I learned from Charlie, who was you, was that everyone has the capacity to change their levels. And the way Charlie explained it really helped me, because I think in pictures as well. It's kind of like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory's great glass elevator. And you can go all the way to the down in the basement where everything's dark and it's covered and you can't really see much and you're just stuck. And then you have the capacity to rise up and you can get all the way to the top. And when you're at the top, you can just see much more and you have more vision, light, yeah, space, everything. And I used to spend a lot of time. The important thing is not judging yourself for being in the basement, but thinking, like, why am I in the basement? Okay, this is all happening. Right. That makes sense. I wonder what I can do to change this to a higher level of thinking. I still use that now, trying to think of some recent examples.
Well, you spoke about it on the circle group this morning, and I was like,
Yeah.
yes, I love that you're
Yeah.
still using that. I love that that's still helpful for you.
Oh, totally. And I do it about really serious things. So, for instance, Casper might have to have another minor operation. Now, when you first met me, if there was mention of an operation, that would have knocked me out for a week. He would be gonna die. He's never gonna recover. How are we gonna manage this? He's gonna be so distressed. What about his feeding plan? Now, because I live more above level most of the time, when they were like, oh, he's probably going to need an operation, I was like, right, I'm in the top of my elevator. Who can we get to come to his operation and do extra stuff? Like, I was able to like look at it, but it's the same conversation, but looked at through a different level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It takes the personal out of it, doesn't it? It takes the serious, like if you wake up and go, I'm in the basement today, and there could be no rhyme or reason for it, right? It's like, let me not take my thoughts seriously. It's just going to be a bit gloopy for a day or two, maybe, right?
Yeah. And I do sometimes still take my thoughts seriously because it's still work and I'm human. But
Mm.
what people around me have said is you don't get sucked down for that much longer anymore. Like you kind of like physically almost go like and like push through it, or I wallow in my goblin basement a little bit less, or I say, "Hi, I'm just in the basement this morning. Like, don't pay too much attention to me. Like, I'll be out ASAP." And like me and Jamie can laugh about it. But yeah. But I used to get in the basement about crazy, well, not crazy things. They felt horrible at the time about like order and where things were and if people didn't do things the same way. Like, and there's still little sprinklings of that, which I suppose we would call pain body
Yeah.
or where it does press a little button. There was something that happened last week around Casper's feeding, which was obvi always a big issue for me. And I went, no, 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 don't do it that way. And then I was like, whoa, this is a hangover from the before time when things were really, really hard. Like, it's okay. And I was able to acknowledge that with the person and talk it through. And we were like, yeah, fine.
Mm, mm. And so
Yeah.
you have the nervous system education, the nervous system, now that you understand that, are you able to sort of join the dots there too and see where you are like in those moments?
Much more. I find myself like relaxing my shoulders a lot more. I find myself like being like, oh, where am I in space right now? I can
Mm.
see this. Oh, the birds are singing. I walk around like with my head more upright. I don't wear headphones anymore. Like, yeah, and I'm able to think, right, what does my body need right now? What does my mind need right now? What do they need together? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I'm past the point of like the emergency light. That's got been on for a while and I've ignored it. And then I'm like, ugh. But then it's like, all right, well, there's always next time.
Yes, that's the point, isn't it? You're now a practitioner in this, in your
Yeah.
body and listening, in understanding how, what sort of thread can take us into a basement, right? You're very
Yeah.
aware of that now. So you're a practitioner in that. And yes, of course, sometimes we can get lost in that, but it is about being very loving, not judgmental.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that's been a practice. I
Yeah,
grew up
God, me, same. Still.
grew up with like through nobody's fault. I think it was many things, this idea that your best like your best is good enough, but actually is it really? Oh, yeah, it's not good to have too many feelings, you're too much.
Mm,
Um, yeah, and I'm more able to like accept things and be graceful with those things and be like, oh, this is just like the pre the this is just a hangover of however many years. It's fine. Like, don't let it mean anything about you. And I find that much more in my day-to-day interactions with like family and friends now. I definitely worry a lot less about what they're thinking about me. And I'm actually more able to be like, hi, I'm worried about this. Is this what you think? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh, okay. And to believe that
yeah, that's really
and
interesting.
and
Yeah.
to check things out. Like, I'm upset right now, and this is my thought process. And then the other person's like, oh, well, that's not mine. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. I lived a lot in story. That's another point that was really important work we did. I lived a lot in these stories that I'd created about like everything. And actually, I realized that a lot of it was story, and I wasn't very present in a lot of things. So that's one of the nervous system teachings that I've got from you is like thinking about how to be present, what's actually going on. Stick to the facts. We still, me and my mum and Sandra, Jamie's mum, still say that. Stick to the facts. What are the facts, Lauren? And I'm like, oh yeah, what are the facts? Like, you've just made this up. Oh yeah. And then we can laugh about it like this. Like we laugh so much more now. And like me and Jamie still bicker. Well, I bicker with him. He's not a bickerer. But we laugh about it. Like we had the one recently about how he never listens to me and doesn't know anything about my life. And then he's been away on a work trip and he came back and he said, what were you doing on that work trip? Because you don't listen to my life. I don't listen to yours either. And we were able to joke about it and like not let it mean anything for
Yeah.
either of us and be like, yeah.
But that's an interesting one anyway, because your story or your reality actually was they're not listening to me. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of that kind of repetition of not being heard. So then it's no wonder if you're feeling a little bit, um, going a little bit lower, in the lift, that that story can become true again, right? That's
Oh
the
yeah.
thread of that.
Yeah. And I know when to watch out for it more. So before my period, no one's listening to me, even if they are. I'm tired. And if we've got a week where Casper's been poorly and we're not sleep, God, the impact of like that lack of sleep on having grace with yourself.
Mm.
Like I definitely get less graceful if I haven't slept very well with myself and everybody else. And being able to be like, it's okay, you're tired. Like it doesn't matter. Yeah, what's the matter? Like, what do things mean has been a really helpful part of it, for sure. A lot of the stuff that we talked about giving thought, meaning, and feeling, and that is something that is in our power when not very much stuff is,
Mhm.
has been
Yeah.
quite good. And seeing that in action for myself, but with other people. So Casper has a very, very rare genetic disorder, and we connected with families, with children and adults with the same disorder, and to see how they face similar issues, you see that it's how you think about a problem or a situation that can really help and not attaching negativity to it necessarily. So I learned from you that the brain has a negative bias. And I think I also have a generally like quite cautious approach to things. I'd like to say I'm a glass half full person, but I think I'm outgoing and I'm warm and I'm energetic. But actually, I think my default is like a glass half empty, like a bit tentative, like, oh, it's all going to go wrong as a protective mechanism. Um, but actually saying that that's a choice to think that way, even if it's not a conscious choice all the time. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yes, it's a well practiced. It's well practiced, isn't it? So
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
all, and it becomes an unconscious decision that we make to favor the negative bias,
yeah,
the
yeah,
swampy matter, as we call it.
yeah. And you know me, I love a good bask in the swamp. I love a swim in the swamp. I actively seek out the swamp from watching The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. All TV shows are available for your swampy needs. But that's my favorite place to go for the swamp, to press that button. So I'm not like diving in other places. Like, yeah. And I think that's healthy for me.
Well, it's about being in full permission of all of it, isn't it? Not making
Yeah.
any of it wrong.
Yes, definitely.
So you mentioned that Casper got his diagnosis, and obviously, we no longer work one-to-one together anymore, but you're still in the circle. What is
Mhm.
life like for you now?
It's still tough, but like I said at the beginning, it's not where we were. It's generally quite joyful. Casper is a joyful little man now. He spent the first year and a half of his life really suffering and really sad and really scared of the world. And I felt the same. But we laugh a lot more and we are just starting to try new things. And the stuff that people take for granted just feels quite special, like silly things like, I'm trying to think of a silly thing that he did. That was quite like things around walking. So Casper has mobility problems and he's just started to take his own steps on his own. Just feels a little bit more like, He's so brave. He's a very brave, he's a very courageous little thing. Um, I enjoy things more. Everything from down to like being able to feel the warmth of a shower again. And I'm starting to find my way back to myself in and like, but I'm giving my permission self permission to do that. So I'm not rushing back to work. I'm not rushing to do anything. I'm just having this space to figure out where I am, who I am, what's going on right now. I've definitely slowed down generally in life, and I appreciate that. Um, like I said on the circle today, I've realized that I lived by a lot of like made up rules about things. Um, and I don't do that anymore. And yeah, I feel like I'm more open to connection with other people and things, and I have a lot more space in my brain to like pause and think about things. I feel a lot less like impulsive, and I talk a lot with my hands, like less like this. I'm much more like level.
Mm.
I'm
And
definitely
that's,
less anxious. My body is less anxious. I have less aches and pains. Yeah.
you've got a connection to your cycle now.
Okay. Yeah, for the first time probably since it started. Yeah, since I was a teenager. And like I feel like I've found my voice again, and I feel quite strong, and I don't take no shit, especially from medical professionals. And I tell them what they're gonna do, and they tell me how they're gonna do it, rather than turning up being like, please help me. I'm like, this is what you need to do. And if you
Mm.
can't do it, find me someone who can. And that's worked. And it's not my default because I always had a bit of a worship culture towards professionals. And now it's like, no, I know my child. I've been right this whole time. You will do what I say, and I will find someone who will listen to me now. I don't give up as easily.
It was one of those sort of moments that I really remember is when we had a phone conversation outside of the calls, and I was walking at the beach here, and you seemed to find your voice, and you were like, I'm not having this, and they need to do this, and I know this. And I remember it really vividly thinking, yes,
It's here.
she's yes, she's back.
She's back. Yeah. Sorry, my phone was doing something weird. Yeah, and I felt like I'm back. I feel
Mm.
like I'm back, but I also feel like I'm back, but I'm in a better position than I was before. And it
Mm.
sounds cliched, and it annoys me that it sounds cliched, but like this feels right for me. Like I had another person I connected with, who said to me, you know, children are born to the people they're meant to be. They find you. And you'd said something similar as well. And it was like, yeah, like Casper couldn't have landed better here. Like, I know my stuff. Jamie knows his stuff. Our families are very supportive. We'll fight for him. And like, yeah, from, I feel like this is where I'm meant to be. That's how I that's what I say to people. Yeah.
That's what I absolutely believe as well.
I mean, it was a bit of a pain in the ass to get here.
Well, learning and
Yeah.
sort of, figuring out like meeting yourself in the darkness is not an easy path, is it?
No, no, but it's worth it. It's been worth it for
Totally worth it.
me,
Yeah.
for Casper, for Jamie, but for friends, for family. Like my relationship with my own mum has improved significantly, and it wasn't bad, but it's got stronger, and she's been able to like listen to what I've said and start to explore things for herself. And I've seen a shift in her, I mean, she's always been strong. She's always been on it. She's always been brilliant. But like, even she started got to this point where she's starting to think about her life and what she wants and what's important. And we can have these really open discussions about it and we can support each other on a level. And like friends, like other friends who are going through traumatic and difficult times, they've said, like, I really appreciate you just being able to call a spade and talk about difficult issues with no like secretiveness to them. Or yeah, I talked to a friend recently about suicidal ideation, and like they were thankful that I was able to name it and talk about it, whereas other people might have skirted around the issue.
Mm.
I fear I've become that person in the like local community who is like spreading this word, and they're like, oh, that Lauren always going on about regulation. And I'm like, yeah, but actually, that's just a story I tell myself that I'm too much. But I think I make meaningful connections with people and we gravitate towards each other and we have these great discussions about pressure and not like people not want like one person I think of is feeling a bit sad because their real dream passion is music, but they are doing other jobs. And it's like everything just feel like there's no right or wrong. And yeah, I feel happy to be able to pass those some of the basic teachings onto other people and
Yeah,
get
well,
them
it's
curious.
normalizing nervous system stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is so, so important. Most people just don't understand what system they're in, and then of course they're scared by their thoughts, and yeah, I think yeah, of course, I think doing this work does change your little ecosystem, your world. It's changed mine, and you know, it's changing yours, and your voice does matter. You know, your knowledge and your wisdom is important. So yeah, keep sharing it.
Yeah. It's nice to be able to support people. I've always been a caring person. I've always looked after people, but it's
Mm,
nice to be able to not sacrifice yourself for other people. I
mm.
think I always had this idea that it was important to go above and beyond,
Yeah, yeah,
get about myself.
yeah. Overgiving, people pleasing, fawning, right?
Yeah, definitely. And then feeling guilty when you're wiped out, when actually, oh, it all makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Ah, Lauren, you're such a lovely soul. I just wanted to say, because it occurred to me whilst we were speaking, that you were one of well, one of three women who were the first woman to come on my retreats.
Yes, it was. And I keep seeing people booking onto them, and I'm like, God damn it, I want to go. I'm not in a position to go now, but it was a very special, magical retreat. I went to one in Spain. Yeah, just a really special place and really special energy, and I learned a lot from that.
Yeah,
I
thank
still
you for
remember,
saying that.
I still remember sitting by the river in the medicine spot and like looking around and then going deeper and going deeper. And I just remember seeing these little, I think they were like water voles or something, all, and I hadn't seen them when I'd sat down and they were all going in and out there. And I was like, I would never have seen these if I didn't sit down and just be. Yeah. The more you see when you calm your nervous system and take time and take space, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the coming up, right? You've got more space, you've got more vision, you've got more sense of like safety. When we're in the
Yeah.
basement, it's very small and it's dark and there's no windows.
Yeah. That's another one analogy I can use if I'm feeling stressed. Where are the waterfalls? Come on.
All right, lovely. So, just to close this or sort of, frame it for others, if anyone was thinking of working with me or coming into the circle or coming to the retreats, what would you say?
I would say give yourself the gift of doing that. Explore what's possible for you. Don't be afraid to dip your toe in, um, and see what comes of it. If you're being called to do that, trust your intuition because you've got nothing to lose and a lot to gain. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. And I love you very much.
I love you too very much. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye.